All right, Heidi Anderson. Today we were joined by old returning guest. No, I won't say old like an old. You're not old.
Yeah, I'm 40 though. I look good for 40, by the way.
You do look good for 40, Heidi. But before we talk about what we spoke about today, today's episode is brought to you by alltradescover.com.au. So if you are a tradie, big business, small business, and you need coverage, insurance, hit them up. They'll give you a quote. I'm not going to tell you what they're going to cover and what they're not going to cover because legally I might get them in trouble. But you can hit them up and then please mention our name because basically John is just putting back into the podcast what he earns of us. So that's great.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, John's an absolute legend and we really appreciate his support. So this episode's also brought to you by Kahuna Golf. This is the hat I'm wearing right now. Do you play golf?
Kahunas?
Yeah.
No, I've never played, only mini golf.
Okay. Well, maybe you could wear the hat while playing golf.
Yeah.
You like a hat? I'll give you a hat.
I'll give you my hat on today. Yeah, can I take a hat?
Yeah,
Thank
of course,
you.
yeah. Kahuna Golf, look good, feel good, play good. They have floral designs and a bit more Hawaiian sort of look with their golf shirts. And you've got the hats, shorts, golf rags. They've got them all. There is a code word, Hard Yarns 15, if you would like.
What's that code word?
Hard Yarns 15 for 15% off all of your attire and get around them because they're another local company that is getting around our podcast.
Thanks,
also,
legends.
this episode is brought to you by Raunchy Brewing Co. or Sir Henry's. Sir Henry's is the pub where we host our comedy night every month on a Thursday.
So good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Can't believe I haven't been invited to comedy night yet.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll tell you when the next show is, and we'll give you a free pass, mate.
Yeah, I'll be front row.
Jump up.
No.
Do it.
Can't. No, I don't think I will see myself doing comedy ever in the
Self-limiting
future.
beliefs, mate.
I know it is. It's embarrassment. I think
But thank you very much for today's episode. Do you remember what we spoke about?
No, mate. I think we spoke some big topics.
Yes.
We covered a lot of things, but I probably would diagnose myself ADD, ADHD just by listening to this episode.
Yes.
We had a lot of tangents.
Yep.
We spoke about my diagnosis with ADHD.
Yep.
We spoke about parenting.
Yep.
Spoke about my psychic abilities.
Yes.
We spoke about women's rights and, oh, God.
And some ghost stories at the end.
And some ghost stories at the end. But what else?
Oh, and you had some pretty
Mindset.
freaky stories and experiences,
Yeah.
Mindset, motivation. We didn't even touch motivation really in mindset as much as I wanted to. So, but it's all right. There's always next time.
I'll be back.
You'll be
just
back.
Won't be 18 months.
Nah, we'll
next
come back in a
time.
couple of weeks.
Yeah, and like I said, I might just pop my meds at the start.
Perfect. I love it. Thanks so much for coming on, and let's get hard.
Yeah, eat your heart out, Delbs. I'm here to stay.
Welcome to Hard Yarns Podcast.
I am fucking fat.
Anything Chris White says, please disregard it.
5D is actually a state of being. It's a unity consciousness.
That was Hard Yarns with me, Frankie Rose. So I'm going to throw it over to your co-host.
Daniel Delby.
And Cameron Branch.
I would do this and then I'd gong.
Free in attendance for the millions listening at home. Let's get hard.
Right, well, we're on. We're going. Thank you so much for coming back. It's been, how long, since you've been on last time?
So I think I was here March last year. Mm-hmm. It took a while to come back to me.
Yeah, well, we don't like women. So.
Come on, I know you have a lot of male guests, but I know you enjoy.
It took Delby to leave for us to be able to be allowed to have a woman on.
So it's him.
Tim, no, he loves you. He's your number one fan, I reckon. Actually,
Do you reckon?
Yeah, he loves you. I do as well. We love you.
Oh, thank you. Do you know what? I actually was thinking back to the first time that I came on when I was reflecting as I was driving here today. What I loved about Delbs was we met at one of our friends' weddings.
Yeah.
But when he pitched for me to come on, he actually listened to my whole book. Not many people will do that.
No, he's pretty into that. Hey,
Yeah.
but what also. I hate bigging up Delby too much, but he's actually quite a loyal friend, and he'll listen. If you're doing a podcast or whatever or something, he'll listen.
Yeah.
If you're doing an event, he'll try to go out of his way to do it. So
yeah, he's a good human. And one of my clients actually pitched her to him recently,
Yeah,
and she went and had coffee with him.
Yeah.
And she wants to get into kind of comedy and she's very edgy. She's awesome. And he was just like, there's not many females out there and, you know, that are doing what you're kind of doing. And for me, that's how I roll. And so when I see other people like that,
100%.
It's awesome. But you can see that with you guys and what you've created. It's a whole community, and you can't build community if it's one-sided.
Yeah. He is, I know some people might think he comes across arrogant, but he's usually actually quite, and we talk about it on the pod, so he's fine with me saying this. He's quite, got social anxiety.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like, he gets all weirded out after shows and then.
Same. Me and him are very similar.
And he's always very self-conscious of everyone else. So when you're
Yeah.
thinking of what everyone else is doing, you're often like, you're in your own head and then you're probably, I don't know if you're acting your true self. So you end up sort of like just being the person that you think they want right then and there. I think he's getting really good at just being, no, I am
This
who
is
I
who
am.
I am. I love that. And that's probably been this whole podcast with you guys too,
100%,
though.
yeah.
Like, you're giving yourselves permission to have conversations and for people to like you, to not like you. And I mean, as I was saying on the way here, I'm like, I think you guys have so much to tell me because I love that you're in your new space.
Yeah.
Because you're giving me permission to have my podcast one day be as successful as yours and just be able to run it from, you know, wherever I want with my bestie. I'm just going to find a bestie. But you know what I mean? Like, that's why I just love watching you guys do what you do.
Oh, yeah. I've been hearing it a lot lately, people saying as successful and as big as your podcast to us. And it's a bit of a... I realised the other day I still have imposter syndrome because it is quite a popular and big podcast now. I have to recognise that.
Yeah.
It's sick. I love it still. I'm like a little kid. Like, I'm not going to pretend, cool, man. I'm all too... I fucking love it. I love that it's getting big. I actually get a little scared sometimes because if you got to the level of some of these other big podcasts, like big, like world-beating podcasts, which is what my goal is. That's of course.
And I love it. And you're not afraid to say that either, which a lot of people are scared to let you in on there.
So the fear now is not that I will fail. I am actually quite confident we will succeed. The fear is now, how do I handle that?
How do you handle the fame? That's why I'm here. No, just
the fame, I don't know if I don't know. Well, I guess that comes part and parcel, doesn't it? With the if you do become such a big podcast, but the fame side of things, I mean, I'd like to think it wouldn't change anything like that, but it's more so how I handle myself in the conversations I have on a podcast. I'm very authentic, but do I then become conscious of the fact that you're influencing millions of people instead of maybe like a few thousand?
Yeah. And I think, but like, the way I always think about it, and like coming from breakfast radio and, you know, doing TV and everything, is just if I can change one person's life, and I just always think of that one person.
Yes.
So I don't think about it being too big, because that's when I think you overwhelm yourself. And one of the beautiful things that I learned about in breakfast radio was just always thinking at the end, if someone thinks that I'm just talking to them personally, like one person, then that's how it always used to bring me back to, okay, it's not too big and scary.
Yeah.
But you do, like, you have a voice and you have big opinions, you guys. And
we definitely have big opinions.
yeah, but it's a lot of the things that people are afraid to say.
Yes.
You know, that they might believe, and you've given them that perspective, and also like people like me, you know, that permission slip to be like, oh yeah,
I don't agree with this.
I could be more authentic in my opinions, you know, like not just trying to conform.
It's quite, I don't know if we really did it out of like, I don't even think we really thought about it.
Yeah.
Probably just out of stupidity. And then you sort of say something and then you're like, ooh, not sure people are going to like that.
Yeah.
Or agree with that. Or that's a bit controversial. Or that's going to ruffle some feathers. And then once it's out there, especially the first 2 or 3 times, you sort of you become numb to it.
Yeah.
But that first one, I remember just putting my opinion out there once when I was, I don't know, I was a sheet metal worker. I wrote a little half an essay on Facebook about some sort of political stance or something. I remember writing this out and hovering over post for like an hour and a half, like just sitting there. I don't want to do it. And then I posted and I got the biggest butterflies. And then most people just like and agree and go, oh my God, definitely, I feel the same. And you're like, oh, okay.
That wasn't as bad as what I thought.
A lot of people think the same. They're just afraid to say it.
Or they don't even realize that other people think it. And so they're having this questioning going on in their own head, and then all of a sudden someone says it and they're like, oh shit, yeah, that's me.
Well, it's okay to be wrong as well.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've been wrong on the podcast about certain things?
Certain we've been wrong a few times.
Like what?
Oh, fuck, I don't know off the top of my head.
Many.
But
get out the
yeah,
checklist.
like countless. But I think more often than not we're right.
Yeah.
And usually on topics that that have been quite controversial. I remember listing off making a list of like 15 things. One of our first ever episode in this studio, I listed off what we had been right about over the last 2 or 3 years that we were considered conspiracy theorists for. And I was
really?
like, what the fuck?
Shit, I need to listen to that.
Yeah, as I was listing them down, I was like, oh, there's a lot.
Actually, I'm smarter
We
than what I thought.
are bang on. We're not smart. We're not geniuses. We just listen.
Yeah.
We
No,
don't.
but do you know what? I think you have to give yourself credit for that. I'm not here to just blow smoke up both of your asses. But Delby, if you listen back to this, I'd give you 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
But oh fuck, now I forgot my train of thought.
Yeah,
That happens sometimes.
being authentic potentially. Yes.
Shit.
Is this you? Who I
This is
feel
me.
like I
This
remember
is my
you.
brain. Did I do this last time?
Maybe.
Do you know what? I actually just own it now.
Yeah,
because
that's the best thing to
sometimes,
do.
well, but for years when I worked in breakfast radio, you just want to hide from that. But actually, I have brain fart, and I completely forget what I'm saying. And I think it's the ADHD.
Yeah, because you're thinking ahead in so many
I'm
moves.
thinking, and I've got like 10 conversations going on.
Where
in my
were you
head.
thinking ahead? Do you remember? No.
Not now. Shit, how embarrassing! People are going to be like, "That's right, she did do that last
But
time."
you were saying you give Delby credit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I was about to say something about blowing smoke up you guys' asses, and then I got my brain got delayed.
But regardless,
Thinking of your asses.
well, yeah, no, that's a granted
Well,
response.
I know, but yeah, I've had to own it now because I've done it on stage. I do it.
Oh yeah.
And for me, like I used to experience so much anxiety and shame around it that people aren't going to think like, oh, she's dumb. But actually I'm so passionate about what I'm saying that I'm so in the moment. I think that then I question myself for 2 seconds and then I'm done.
Yeah. There's days you have on days and you have off days.
Oh yeah.
Like
I thought I was on today.
You're on today, but you have off days, and I think you can train it as well.
Yeah.
Like I listened to my first couple of podcasts, and you're like, wow, it's stagnant, it's very structured and stilted, and probably the first 10 to 20, like it slowly progresses, but it ends up being you just fall back into talking.
So you're saying I need work?
No,
It's been
you're
a
doing
while.
very well.
I need to go back to radio school.
Yeah, but I think
It'll
you
come
have
back to us,
You have
hopefully.
on days, and I certainly do. I have days where I go, wow, I was very insightful today. Well done, Cameron. And then there's days where I'm like, you were a fucking passenger today, mate.
Yeah.
Like,
but I think you have to, because
Yeah.
sometimes you drive in the car and other days you're sitting there and you're supporting your mate who's driving the car.
Well, sometimes it's the same with comedy. Sometimes you're having a banger of a day and you're like, oh, I couldn't fucking miss. And then some days you bomb, or some days you're just like, I filled a spot, I did my job. It's the same jokes, the same everything. Sometimes it's just off, like something.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
just,
your energy.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to my brain,
yeah.
the ADHD brain. But then also, is it even ADHD? I don't know. That's a whole other topic.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I'm very interested about ADHD and whether it's, I don't know whether it's like caused by anything.
I have
whether
opinions.
You have genetic predispositions. You have opinions?
I do.
Here's your chance.
No,
Be
well,
authentic. Tell your truth.
Because you know what? I've actually struggled to talk about it because I got diagnosed, I think when I first came on the podcast, I was going through, this whole phase of like healing and understanding myself. And so I've done so much work on myself with my mental health that I'd only got to a certain point that I was like, I'm still exhausted of myself. Like I'm still exhausted of my brain.
Yeah.
And I read Gabby Bernstein's book, Happy Days. I don't know if you've...
No, I haven't.
Well, so she's like, the spiritual guru who there was a lot of stigma around mental health, don't take medication. She was one of those people who of led that.
Yeah.
And then she fell pregnant finally after years and years and years, and she wrote a book on how she nearly wanted to take her own life after having her baby because of postnatal depression, and medication saved her life.
Yeah, okay.
It was the permission slip that I was like, shit,
Yeah.
maybe that's the missing piece for me, and how it had taken her on deeper levels of healing. So reading her book, I was like, I'm going to explore this because I want to see what it feels like to have a normal brain, to not well, to actually not have 50,000 conversations going on in my head. And so I went and I explored it, and the guy pretty much was like, I could diagnose you within 2 seconds. And so I went down that path, and I'm now medicated. However, what I struggle with is in my 20s, the things I was popping back in my 20s are the things that I'm popping now. And so I've had this I've had to go down the whole path of what are my beliefs around drugs and big pharma and, with COVID and how I didn't want to get jabbed and, all of these things. And then I'm like, but here I am lined up to get my meds from the psychiatrist that I had to do a lot of internal work. And then I also did a lot of reading on it. And I'm kind of the same thing of that. Dr. Gabor Mate, who is an incredible, if you got him on the podcast, he would definitely come on the podcast. He's extremely insightful. No, he's almost 80, but he's one of the biggest leaders in the world of conversation around ADD, ADHD.
I love it.
And it being trauma.
Maybe a Zoom call.
Oh my God, he would do it. He's all he wants to do is save little kids from, medication.
Yeah.
And so that's why I didn't want to ever talk about it, because I'm like, I don't want to encourage all these kids to take meds when I've done all of this work that I have a routine. I have to go to the beach every day, all these things. So for me, I'm scared. I've been scared to talk out on my journey because I've had to face my own demons around drugs that I was popping in my 20s to now being in my 40s being like, hey, this is what I'm taking to medicate myself.
Well, I think painting any medication with a broad brush that's just as dangerous as having any medication that you and just assuming it's safe, because we clearly see COVID's a perfect example. It's safe for a lot of people, but not safe for a lot of people as well. So it's just there's just because my opinion was the same as you. I didn't get jabbed. And I did it because, one, I didn't need to, and I didn't really feel comfortable having it. I didn't think it was 100% safe. And I was pretty vindicated in the end because my mum had a response to it, and it was through a genetic predisposition that she had and I potentially have had. I haven't been tested for it, but, I could go get tested and find out. I would have had that same reaction. So I stand vindicated. But also, just because I feel like that about that doesn't mean ADD, if I was to look into those drugs and go, no, they're quite beneficial, and there's been enough testing around to show their safety data or whatever, doesn't mean you throw the bath water. Is it the
baby out with the bath water?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is such a weird saying. Don't throw the baby out with the bath
water. Throw my baby out.
Because back in the day, apparently the wash basins, where they'd wash them.
But you don't throw it all out.
Yeah.
And that's what I think.
I think sometimes though, and this comes with the ADHD, is that you can be very black and white, and there's a lot of perfectionism that comes with it. And then for women, especially why so many women are getting diagnosed now, is that we mask it. Women are really, really great at masking. And so a lot of people don't realize that they've got it, or, that they experience it. I like to kind of say experience it, so I don't identify fully with the label.
Have you experimented with different drugs or different medications, different sort of ways of dealing with ADHD?
Well, see, for me, when I lived in London, and you read it in my book, I was on drugs all the time, Coke, Dexies, that was our big thing. But I always thought, because I was the fat one, this was my belief, that I had to take way more than everyone else because I was fat. And
because you thought your body would absorb it differently.
Right. And so then this was one of the things that I realised. My doctor was like, no, Heidi, it's because of your brain. And I'm like, oh my God.
That makes far more sense.
Same with mushrooms. And, some people microdose mushrooms. I tried mushrooms in Amsterdam. I had to take double the amount of everyone else because I was thinking again, it's my weight, this. So anyway, there's lots of stuff that's gone on with my brain with it. But for me, when I first started, I started on Dexies, the dexamphetamine, and I couldn't sleep for the first 3 months. And I reckon that was the first time I met you guys here in the studio. I was struggling to sleep, but I had to accept that this was the way that my life was for this certain period whilst I was trying different amounts. But I would get a second hit, and he said there's only a small percentage of people that happens to, but I would get a rush of the dexamphetamine at night time, because you can do like slow release.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can do.
Never had a slow release one before. Oh my God.
Well, see, this is the thing. And so I had to also, like I said, doing the healing work for myself, I
Yeah.
had to rewrite my beliefs around these drugs.
I'm interested, like the healing. When you say healing, what was like? Why, if you don't mind
So
going into what were you
much.
healing from? But what were you
Everything.
doing to heal? Like, yeah, was it just an expectation of what life's meant to be? And
I think so. And when you're exhausted of your own brain, you know, like,
Yeah.
and just constantly questioning every single conversation that you've had. And like, people think that I'm quite confident, and I am, but I think mine's more courage. I'm courageous.
Yeah.
In that I'll try something, I'll keep stepping into it and exposing myself to it until I am confident in it. And so I think a lot of people miss probably, and I've probably done the same. But yeah, like taking the meds has honestly, I mean, it doesn't sound like it today. I should have popped one before I came on here. But I've never been so focused.
Yeah, okay.
And being able to work like the irregulation of my emotions, the moodiness. Like there's so many things like that I could list off personally that I've experienced, but being able to be medicated now on Ritalin. So I tried all the dexamphetamines. They weren't for me. Unfortunately, in my 20s, they were. They were like, yeah, this is my go-to. But right now, I was like, I lost my appetite. I couldn't concentrate with them. I felt like I was probably peaking a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Ritalin has been the best thing for me. It's changed my
Yeah.
life. And I get scared saying that because I'm like, oh, am I encouraging this whole like drugged this nation of like, because a lot of people go, oh, have you lost your personality? If anything, my healing has been, you know, I've been able to find myself, my authentic self on a deeper level.
It's good.
Yeah. So
I wonder
I don't know if that
if-
answers your question. ADHD brain. I'll just blame it on that.
Well, is there? I wonder if there's any. I haven't looked enough into ADHD, but I wonder if there's any dietary, like what you're eating, contributes
I
to.
think so much.
Yeah, like
I
and
do believe-
processed
yeah.
foods and the fucking whatever
Alcohol-
the
but
fuck
it-
they put alcohol,
alcohol,
sugar. Like I
100%.
Yeah.
And environment. Like if you really think about it, and this is why, like I said, I've always struggled to share this opinion because, you know, being neurospicy, like there's so many levels to it. And so I just really want to say this is my story, you know, like, but there's so many, because a lot of people will disagree with some of the things that I'm saying, but, you know, the different levels for me and unraveling has, it's, I can't even remember your question. See, my brain today. I need to bloody get my Ritalin out of my bag.
You're all right. It is. I might actually do a bit of deep diving. I'm sure Delby has his,
he's
his
talking
opinions
about-
on it,
yeah,
but Delby's like,
Well, him and I actually spoke about this when we were in here last time because
Yeah.
I think we see parts of each other in each other's story, especially as performers, the pressure you put on yourself. But honestly, if you can research it, Scattered Minds is one of the best books, which is Dr. Gabor Mate, and he speaks like he's a doctor, and so he medicated himself on Ritalin, his kids, but then he also explored this idea of trauma and it being trauma, and from a young age when we're born and we develop outside the womb, our brains, we're one of the only mammals that do, that maybe it's this connection from when we're younger with the things that happen, like the big trauma, the little trauma.
I'm sure it's all a bit of
Yeah.
There's a tapestry of like you're a product of your environment. You know the what you're eating, what what drugs you're taking, how much you're drinking, how much stress you have. I'm sure it's and obviously genetic predispositions to having certain stuff going on in your brain. But I'm interested about the trauma.
Definitely.
Because like Boris would be great to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah. Yes. Well, him and I have spoken about it.
Yes, and thank you very much for that hookup
Boris
because
Walter.
#1 episode that we've ever had now.
Stop it. He's incredible.
He's and he's coming back on in.
Is he?
On the 17th and on the 16th, me and him are doing a session. So then we're going to do the session on the 16th and a past life regression.
So good.
And trauma, and then we're going to unpack it the next day in a podcast.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what his opinions would be on it because I feel like he's done a lot of psychotherapy and would have, he would. And this is the thing, there is so many different opinions on it. There's some people that are like, no, you're born that way.
Yes.
And that's how they want to identify with it. And I'm kind of questioning, like, my mum has had big trauma. So's my dad. And both of
And how much of
them.
that passes down, yeah.
Exactly.
Either through even just their parenting styles
Yeah.
because of what they've experienced.
Because my mum's chaotic and this, and then my dad's
Yeah.
like the kind of inattentive, you know? And so, there's so many layers, and I think that's why I get a little bit scattered talking
Yeah.
about it, but also because I'm not super confident
Yeah.
being the voice of it yet. Like I actually felt, you know, like, I want to be all known on everything, like, so I'll be
Yeah.
able to, you know, verse all this stuff because, you know, I'm not a doctor. I'm only telling you my experience, but a lot of people have big opinions on it that I've always been so frightened. So I've barely spoken about it on my own Instagram, but I'm stepping more into owning that part of me, and it's
good.
Yeah, there's so many different levels.
Yeah, there are so many things that you can think about when it comes to like your childhood and its contribution to how you sort of behave now. And I'm starting to see those sorts of things as that's, I think, part of the experience. That's part of the lessons, and that's part of who you're meant to work through. That's your thing that you're got to work through.
Yeah.
And so now I don't look at those. I'm sure I do to a point, but those traumas. And now I'm sure if I had a really a terrible trauma or something, I'd still look at it poorly. But I look at them now as lessons. Even like I look at everything as a lesson, or I find the not the lesson. Lesson isn't the word. I find the perspective shift in them. So, for example, I hadn't seen my girlfriend for about a week, and I messaged her saying, "I miss you." And then I was like, "But actually, do you know what? That's quite a nice feeling to have. I haven't missed someone for quite a while.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful at the fact that I've got someone I can miss.
Yeah.
So instead of being upset that I was missing, like hanging out with someone, it was
a perspective shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wow, what a perspective
Yeah.
shift that was. Like it was, and I'm starting, that's just an example I'm using now, but there's plenty of those sorts of perspective shifts that you can go, wow, the fact that I wish I could do this, or, you know, whatever. That is a perspective shift in which you find like a positive and a negative. And I don't like to always find positives and negatives.
But we shouldn't, right? Like,
Yeah.
and this is one of the things that I've kind of been doing through all my healing journey is like there's that toxic positivity. And
Yes.
I think growing up in, you know, my husband's going through it at the moment. Like he's doing the work and, you know, the inner work, if that's, you know, you want to call it, but you know, that whole people pleasing. And I think that's what we do sometimes. We've got to be positive because we've grown up with a generation of parents that are like, she'll be right, mate, let's get on with it. And so we don't acknowledge that, you know, our emotions, whatever they are, good, bad, you know, whatever. And so we're told to like constantly move on and be positive. Whereas,
I mean, I fell into the toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Find the positive, be positive.
Yeah.
And to a point, I still do.
Yeah,
Like,
I think there's...
within reason.
Yeah.
I experience the negative. I understand it's there. I dislike it, or I feel the
uncomfortable.
I feel the uncomfortable nature of it. I feel the fear. I feel the I guess anxiety. I feel scared or upset, sad, anger. I feel those emotions, and then I go, okay, I felt it. Now what?
What do you do when you feel it? This is welcome to the Psych Lounge. No. Like, what do you do when you feel it?
I understand it. That's what I do. I just go,
Are
this
you
is
analysing
fine.
it? Or are you...
No, I feel
feeling
it.
it.
Feel it. Go,
Yeah.
oh, I'm fucking angry.
Yeah.
All right. Breathe.
We have to learn
What
this,
can I
don't
do?
we?
Yeah.
Because we weren't taught that.
And it was fine to be angry.
Yeah.
And I'm now going, it's the old me, when we talk toxic positivity, the old me would go, no, fucking don't be angry. Like,
Yes,
just go,
like
no,
box
fine.
it in.
Yeah. Instead, I go now, I'm angry. Fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Breathe. Why am I angry? Okay. Nothing I can do about that now. What can I do to change it? So I feel the anger initially. I don't hold on to it. I let it move on, and then I make the changes necessary. I think that's what we need to get to.
Yeah.
Most of us.
Yeah.
and
It's hard.
it's hard.
It's hard work, like reparenting yourself. That's literally what we're doing.
Because you don't continuously do it. You fall into the old traps of just going, oh, fuck this cunt, fuck
Oh
him.
yeah, or distract
yeah.
on social media or listening to Hard Yarns podcast.
Yeah.
Distract yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
You drink, you smoke, you go out gambling. You girls, guys. You fucking. There's all sorts of distractions.
Yeah.
But yeah, just quickly. I don't rush it. If it's something distinctly upsetting, I'll let myself bathe in it for a little bit.
Yeah.
But once you realise you can't change it, and all you can do is address how you move going forward. And I think that's the best part. But definitely feeling it.
Well, I think like for me, one of the things with the ADHD for me is sometimes it would really drag. Those emotions would really drag on. And then one of the things that I've been, when you were talking about like working on yourself and healing and stuff is actually releasing shame. Like I have, and I didn't realize how much shame rules my life in every way. Like if I yell at my son, right? And I try not to be that yell parent and try not to normalize being the yell parent. Yeah. But occasionally the bear's poked and I'm just like, rah. But I shame myself, sometimes I'll shame myself for a conversation, save me having a couple of brain farts already. Yeah. This shame spiral, especially for people who experience ADHD, is so deep, like so deeply rooted. And so for some of the work that I've been doing, I've got this coach, she's in my back pocket for 2 years. I've had her. So every time I have something that I'm working through or going, shame always rules for me. Like it's so deep. Rooted, and I think that's to do with my mum and my the ADHD side. Like if you talk to a lot of people about that, there's a lot of shame that's and they reckon that's one of the worst.
Where do you think you are on that healing journey? If you don't mind getting a bit vulnerable. It never ends.
It never ends, but I think I feel so proud of myself to be able to sit here at 40, I just turned 40, and to be able to share how much, like I've sat in the depths of the dark night of the soul. And I'm talking like screaming my fucking lungs up of anger from my childhood, of my dad, and my mum. And, there's a lot of stuff around parenting, but also then the shame of my teenage years of things that I said to people, bullying, so many things. And I think I'm still not there yet. It's definitely a work in progress, but it's really accepting all parts of yourself. And it's so easy for us to say in like unconditional love and, but the way that I accept my son is how I am working towards accepting myself. And it's still, there's still parts of me that dark shadow comes in and, but I'm getting there. And
I often, I suggest to friends when they're being a little hard on themselves to think, what would you say to a friend who was asking you the same questions? You'd say, oh, no, don't worry. Don't beat up on yourself. You've made a mistake. Yeah. You have ways of moving forward. Let's fix this problem. You'd address it to another person like that.
Oh, yeah.
But when it's you go, you fucking idiot. You can't believe you did this, and you start beating up on yourself. So the moment you start treating yourself like you would treat a friend that was in need, that is when you start to go, I'm not, I stop feeling guilt and shame and anger for those sorts of feelings, and you just start owning it.
Yeah, and I think it's a habit. Like shaming myself is become a habit, and that's something that I've had to because that's my programming. That's how I've spent most of my life. So it's like constantly reminding myself as soon as that shame comes in that it's like, that's not actually where you're at, Heidi. It's like you've done a lot of work to get where you are, and it's looking at those parts of yourself and not really liking it, but actually seeing yourself there and loving that anyway. And I'm obsessed with personal development and human behavior, and so I just love watching myself, analyzing myself, analyzing everyone around me. My husband is like, fucking hell, like, why are you like this? And I'm like, it's my ADHD hyper focus.
And see, I think there's other ways to heal, as our listeners would know. Like I've tried a few different things. I've tried we did a childhood trauma regression live as an episode. Did that, and that was quite vulnerable and exposing to do. I did that. I've done the mushroom journey. I've done my own sort of, I guess, for lack of a better word, research on
Yeah.
how to work on myself for the
Yeah,
last
like
3 or
reading
4
little
years.
tools and
listening to philosophers and
Yeah.
reading certain quotes and whatever. And I've been on that journey myself, and there's no right way. I've found there's no perfect one. It's just whatever's right for you at that time.
And that's something I think, like when I spoke openly about anxiety on the radio in 2016, which I guess that became my thing. You know, I became quite famous for being open and honest about how I was truly feeling. And, you know, for me, that opened so many doors of that I didn't have to do it just one certain way of going to a psychologist and sitting in it. You know, I did see a psychologist at that time, but I did all different things. And I think that's the biggest thing that I talk to people about with healing. It's like, try anything and everything. Not everything will work. You won't like this. You might not like that. But just be open.
Yeah. Is that what you would? Because I like to, and it's something I said I wanted to start doing in these episodes. Is I want the listeners to take tangible things that they can try. And
I've got so many.
there'd be a
Should've
lot of
brought my notebook.
there's a lot of people who would be suffering from suffering.
I think you do. So I was suffering from myself.
Yeah.
I was suffering from the exhaustion of my own thoughts and my own brain. You can't fucking escape that.
Yeah.
Like it's the same, like I said, when I was born into this body, right? And I hated my body for such a long time in my life.
Yeah.
I felt claustrophobic.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when your head is just full of perfectionism, overthinking, overanalyzing, the shame, like all of this shit. So for me, it's having that conversation with yourself, and it's a choice when we wake up in the morning, right? We get a choice to how we enter the day, and so for me, I have different routines set up. I make sure I breathe every single morning. I do breath work. I go to the gym 3 days a week. I pump fucking weights because like that feels good for me. I have to walk on the beach. I have to ground. I have to dive into my thoughts and my feelings. And then the Ritalin has helped that.
Okay.
Like it's actually, and for me to be able to communicate, because I think my biggest struggle, believe it or not, I was a broadcaster, communicator, but I couldn't communicate with the people around me. I would shut down and then the spiral would go, you know, on and on in my head. And I've learnt to communicate and, you know, not be dysregulated or whatever that word is, like with my emotions. So I think the biggest thing that I always say to people is shed your shit, own it. Like just literally send someone a message and say, I am fucking stuck in my head and I can't get out.
Yeah.
Or I'm, you know, SOS, like I just need to talk. Yeah. And, you know, one of my girlfriends just before, she sent me a message and she's like, I am struggling with my mental health at the moment. And she just needed to say it. She's like, I'm actually fine, but I just needed to say it out loud. And I think that's been the game changer for me. And so I think sometimes we're looking for these real tangible things, which I know I have. I'm Mrs. Fix-It over here. Do you want to try and fix everything? But it can just be a conversation, just owning that you've got something going on and shedding your shit, as I like to call it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good because, I think for me, like in my experience with, I'd definitely err on that ADD side of things. I think you all do. I'd be self-diagnosed to a point, but if you are in that sort of way inclined, my advice is that routine that you find your own one, and let it change and morph and evolve over the years. But routine, but without rigidity. Because don't beat up on yourself.
Perfectionism.
The perfectionism. Oh, do you know what? My car battery went flat. I can't do this. I can't do that. Well, you're going to have to change and adjust.
Yes.
So
it's finding the flow state, and that's been so big for me.
And,
you know,
well, and eventually when it's becoming too uncomfortable, you realize, oh, that part's not for me. I need to get rid of that part.
Yeah.
And you might not notice it straight away, but after a while, it becomes so. I just need to go with what does feel comfortable. What I do need to go with the flow, the path of least resistance.
Yeah. And I think like my biggest thing is just keep stepping into like the uncomfortable. You know, like I just keep like those conversations that are fucking hard. Like, and you know, Brené Brown, you do the hard thing. We can do the hard things. Like, you know, she talks a lot about that, and it's like, I constantly wake up and I think, oh fuck, I've got to just have that conversation today. Like, I've got to do, but I know that on the other side there's growth.
Yeah, rip the Band-Aid off sometimes.
But sometimes you got to let all this shit integrate into your life as well. Like my issue probably is, if we're diagnosing ourselves over here, is that I probably get too Mrs. Fix-It, you know, like that I've got to, and that's what I have to remind myself when those routines get too, you know, I'm just doing it for a routine that I've lost the pleasure and the enjoyment in it. That's when I just need to, and that's all the work that I've been doing on myself is like trying to find that flow, I guess, you know, and live in peace.
Peace is the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Peace, and we got to the word whole.
Oh.
For me.
Yeah.
I am whole.
I am whole. And
So-
I think that's accepting all parts of yourself, which is what we kind of spoke about.
So I thought it was going to be. I was convinced at the start of the session with Davey Rowe that my I am affirmation statement was going to be I am peace,
Yeah.
because I felt like that was everything.
Yeah.
I felt like that was when you are at peace,
You're dead.
you have everything. And we went even deeper than that, and it
Yeah.
came to I am whole. And I am whole
Wow.
is, I think, accepting of your flaws, but also, you know, ready to receive, but also to give.
Yeah.
It's everything, being whole. And so I'm there.
Oh
Me
my-
and Delby did a little.
I love this.
We did an experiment at the start of the year.
Yeah.
And we recorded it, first episode of the year, and we wrote it down. We reverse engineered. So Delby had his pathway to success.
Yeah.
And he wrote it down. This is how I want to get to here. And I wrote, this is the person I want to be. I'm just going to be that person and see if I get to that point. And so how does that person act? How does that person think about things? What actions does that person take? And from time to time, I waver from that path.
Yeah.
And I get a bit of a kick up the arse and go back to that person. And I have become that person that I said I wanted to be on the podcast.
I love.
And
that
Delby,
you guys are so open to this. I love that you guys share
and
this.
as far as I'm aware, Delby has achieved his as well. So I don't think there's a wrong path. I chose to be the person where he chose to work to be the person, and both seemed to work. So I just adopted the traits of the person I wanted to be and started doing that, and everything else flowed with it. And he found the pathway to success, or to where he wanted to go, and ticked the boxes along the way.
So you guys are both kind of like doing the whole power of like visualization and but one's
We still
taking
both-
action,
yes.
and one is just I love it.
So so there were. We went through it in the podcast, and there's sort of 3 ways of life, and then the first one I can't even remember how I broke it down, but there was the people who, they sort of just. I don't even want to misquote it. I'll try and find it, and I'll repost that clip because it's from the first episode of the year, and it's really interesting how both of our methods seemed to have worked, but mine seemed so illogical.
Yeah.
Mine was I had no money coming in where I was trying to
Yeah.
go. I had nothing.
But it's
I
that-
just decided then and there to drop everything and work and be the person that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Instead of talking about getting to where I wanted to be, I just decided to be that person.
But you know, you had Jess on here, Jess Williamson,
Yeah,
delusional self-belief, right? That's how
Yes.
she's got, and the way I see it is like when you're a kid, it's like my 5-year-old or Scotty, they don't have all the action steps of they just know that like, cool, I want to get that ice cream today.
Yeah.
And I am going to have that ice cream. And do you know what I mean?
I don't
And
care
it's-
what tantrum I have
we
to have.
don't get caught up in our ego and
Yeah.
all those different things, like where we cockblock ourselves, all of the 80,000 thoughts of how we can't do it. And then so that's the evidence that we look for. Whereas you've just gone, that for me is like that kid belief.
Yeah.
That from when you're a kid, you're like, yeah, this is who I am. And when you start to work towards that, then the shit's going to start to line up for you.
Well, even so that whole shoot for the delusional self-belief.
Yeah.
Even in some recent sessions where I had written down manifestations or written down goals, they were so limited. They were even my aspirations. I was like, I'll just hold back a little bit. I'm not that. that's a bit greedy. Like, why?
Yeah, why?
Oh, that one's a little bit more realistic. That's how I put it in my head instead of going, why wouldn't I reach for that?
Yeah.
And I remember going through this and I messaged my girlfriend my goals and what I was aiming to achieve. And she's like, but you already have that. And I was like, wow, wow, sick.
Yeah.
When you look at it like that.
Yeah.
But also, too, like, why was I so limited in what I was asking for and trying to achieve instead of going, nah, fuck, shoot for the stars?
Yeah.
I think...
Is it because you're scared of disappointing yourself or...
I think you just feel like it's a bit more attainable.
Because I
Even
think
when I
sometimes I'm the same and I'm like, why did I just think that was like the be all and end all when I could go for something bigger if I wanted it to be?
What is it? Is it shoot for the stars, hit the moon? Or
shoot for the moon. If you miss, you'll still land amongst the stars.
Which, that's it. Me and Cam talked about that quite the other day and we were like, but the stars are further away.
Who cares? You're Cam.
Cam McLaren. But
I love that guy. He actually did a radio stint with me at Hit 929 there for a while.
Really?
Yeah, he came in a few times.
Oh,
yeah.
he's got a... Welcome to RAC Arena. Do you know what? Actually, he is the start of every single episode of the Hard Yarns podcast.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is that him?
Yeah, when it goes, welcome to Hard Yarns podcast. That's Cam McLaren.
He's a funny guy.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
He's good fun, good vibe. But yeah, I used to do it when I was doing sheet metal. I would, if I had you generally know what you're trying to achieve in a day, like how many frames you're trying to weld together or whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I'd go, okay, this is what I know I can do this. I'm going to aim for this. So even if I just get to just a little bit further than I should have, I've achieved more than I was going to. And sometimes you'd actually achieve the unachievable in your head.
Yeah.
And you'd have those days and go, fuck, I actually got way more done than I had a little to-do list of things I wanted. And I was like, fuck, it's 2 o'clock. I still got an hour left. What else am I going to do? So I'll write down, okay, let's draw out these new plans or whatever. And it goes back to what we said before. Some days you have on days, some days you have off days. Potentially getting yourself in your best version of yourself through routine, through doing the things you know make you feel best. That's probably going to make you be on, and then you probably will achieve more. But obviously having a little flexibility with what you're trying to achieve because things do come up. Life gets in the way. You can't help if a meteorite hit and we get a big earthquake or something.
I'd actually wouldn't mind that. I always kind of think like it would be good if we all just died together. Then I wouldn't have but then I wouldn't have FOMO. And literally that's how I have spent most of my life. I'm like, if we all die together, then I'm not going to have FOMO because I used to be so scared of dying. So even you saying that, I wouldn't have been able to handle that.
Yeah, okay.
Because I've been so petrified of dying. But now getting to this point of healing and spirituality, I kind of believe that and the ghost stories that you guys share, all this shit, like that it kind of gives me that, the validation that I'm looking for that there is something else, so I will be okay. Yeah. But I constantly am like, well, if we all just die together, cool.
Well, I've turned it in, I don't know how, but I've turned spirituality and the spirit realm into a science in my head by basically just saying, we can't see UV light. Yeah. We can't see a number of different sort of veils of energy that some animals can see. We can see through technologies that we use for infrared cameras and whatnot. Yeah. Just because we can't see them with the tools that we've been given as humans and touch them and smell them, doesn't mean they don't exist. So for me, that's all that sort of spirit realm is, and that ghosts and anything of that ilk are not like this woo-woo, scary spirit thing. This is just another form of energy that we can't use with our tools that we've been given.
Yeah. But it's funny, isn't it? Like then some people can feel it and some people can see it. Yeah. And like they say that we all have the capabilities. Yeah. We just don't know how to always tap into it.
I believe that. I've been tapping into my it feels embarrassing to say sometimes because I know some of my mates listen to it, but I've been tapping into what I call my higher self. Yeah. And having conversations with myself. And I come up with answers to questions that I could never answer myself as me, just sitting here talking to you. Yeah. And I come up with these responses and go, how did you do that? But I don't think it's like I'm tapping into some sort of magic spirit realm.
No, it's
I
just
think
your-
I'm just getting quiet with myself where I can actually go, break things down logically and sensibly and then even just go, oh, I never thought of that. I've changed my perspective by getting quiet. I've rid myself of all the distractions and all I've done is gone, of course, that's
Yeah.
the answer.
Well, that's what Boris, literally he does, like your session with him, with Boris Walter, like he calls it like, as he spoke about, like taking off all the masks and meeting yourself. And so for me, one of my sessions was confronting death. And the reason why was I actually fell, and this is all hypnotic meditation, not on the drugs. This is all, he, takes you on this hypnotic meditation. And I went down this kind of what felt like Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole. And then all of a sudden I was sitting at the table and all these animals were giving me these signs that were with, and I'm like, now I get the book. Like there was all these things that were popping off for me. But then I also got delivered the message that I was stabbed in the neck, and this is why I had all these neck and shoulder issues. And since I've had that session, so much of my stuff has cleared.
Yeah.
And so I was able, that was one of my biggest fears, was because I was stabbed like horrifically in my past life. And so this is why I've had this fear. And I mean, there was so many other messages. And what was so cool about Boris is he then reflects it back to you. And you just hear like what you actually said from your higher self.
Yeah.
He just reads it back to you and you're like, holy shit. And that's one way that you can, tap into your higher self. Or you can just literally sit in silence, like you said, and you can meet yourself there too.
Well, I write mine down in a journal.
Oh, do you journal?
Yeah.
I love that. I struggle to journal.
Yeah, I'm not consistent enough with it.
Yeah.
I could definitely improve my consistency.
Yeah.
Because it is that one, it's just that one extra little thing.
Oh, God, there's so many things we need to do.
Mate, you look
there?
at my to-do list today, I've ticked every single box except for journal. I did my meditation, I did my whatever, and I remember having a bit of a realization, didn't write it down.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I can certainly get better with. But definitely when you do write it down, it is so interesting to go back and go, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, isn't it? And one of the things I do, it's Gabby Bernstein's stuff actually, because I struggle with just getting started, which again, when I was diagnosing myself with ADHD before I went to the psychiatrist, one of my struggles was I found it really hard to, like at school, actually write any of my assessments or anything. But as soon as I saw someone else and it gave me that inspiration, I could do it. And I find the same with journaling. And so I just listen to her, and then she gets you to read it back to yourself. And sometimes I'll hear it in like my nan's voice, who's passed away. And sometimes I'll hear it in my voice, but my higher self isn't always my voice, if you know what I mean. Like sometimes I'll hear it, like I said,
I don't hear a voice, hey?
You don't hear a voice?
In
your head? Oh my God, this is deep. I fucking love this.
Yeah.
Let's get into our heads.
I don't hear a voice.
So you're not audio?
No, I have a feeling of what words I'm meant to be saying, or guess.
Yeah.
I guess is exactly how I would explain it. That's what happens when I have my meditations and I have a chat with my higher self. It's that.
Because see, some people will see visions.
Yeah.
And like really see, I see visions and I hear.
Do you? Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I've got some real fucking trippy stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
what sort of stuff? Dive deep.
Okay, so I actually have psychic abilities.
Really?
But I don't own them and claim them because I question everything.
Yeah.
I fucking question I'm like, it happens and I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, I think it was about 10 years ago, do you remember when the bombs went off at Turkey Airport?
Yeah. Vaguely.
So there was the shooting at the Turkey Airport. Anyway, in Istanbul, hubby and I just had this feeling when we booked our flights that I was like, we can't go to Istanbul. We can't go. Something bad is going to happen. And he was like, we've just fucking spent all this money. Like, what are you talking about? And there was, word on the streets, the governments, everything was saying like, maybe don't go there. It's a bit unstable at the moment. Anyway, we chose to still go. We went to Cappadocia, but there was barely any tourism going on over there. And someone said to me, if you're really that scared, you need to speak to your guardian angels and speak to your angels. And this is like the start of all this stuff for me.
Yeah.
And I go, okay. And hubby, I remember, was away working. And this is before we went. And I remember laying in bed and I'm like, okay, can you just give me some kind of sign that we're going to be okay if we choose to go? Because like we've booked it, we've paid, we won't get our money back. That night I dreamt hubby and I running through like just this vision that I didn't know what it was. and there's bombs going off behind us, and we've got each other's hands and we're running off and we're okay. And there's these mountains, and I rang hubby the next morning. I go, yeah, we're going to be okay. I had this visual last night in my dream. I just trust it. And then when we got to Turkey, we're in Cappadocia, and we cancelled to go to Istanbul airport. Our flights got moved, and we had to fly from Cappadocia to Istanbul. So when we flew in that day to get to Antalya, our next place, when we landed in Antalya that night, both of our phones were off. We woke up the next morning and we had hundreds of missed calls. And when we were looking out the window and we checked our phones, there'd been a suicide bomber at Istanbul airport, exactly where we were. And when I looked out the window at Antalya, it was the same. Oh, fuck, I've got goosebumps. It was the same backdrop that was in my dream.
Wow.
And I was just gobsmacked. And I said to hubby, that where what we're looking out over the window now? Like that is literally what I saw in our dreams. And I'm talking, we were missed by hours. So when we landed in Antalya, that's when it happened. And it was the same place. But the spooky thing was, I remember being in Istanbul and saying to hubby when I walked over to the toilets, if I was a gunman and I was going to come in here now, I'd shoot up there, And he's like, why the fuck are you thinking shit like that? And that's what happened. And so I had these visuals and these drop-ins. And yeah, it was just one of those moments that you go, fuck, was I being guided, or, was that my premonition? Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, potentially that's your gift.
Yeah.
Maybe you asked for a sign.
I know. And then when you get the sign, this is what they say, when you get the sign, you question it.
Yeah, why? Why? Because I do the same. I can I have a sign? Is this going to be right or whatever?
Yeah.
And I get the biggest fucking sign ever, like, oh, holy fucking shit. Yeah. And I still go, is it a coincidence?
Yeah. Well,
why?
Another one, I've got another one for you that I thought was quite amazing. So one morning I decided to go to Hillary's, live down at Mullaloo. So always go to the beach in Mullaloo with Memphis. And this morning we're having a really hard...
I thought, actually, just on that...
Did you see me at the beach?
Yeah, I think I've seen you at the beach once, because I was surfing down at like Mullaloo in between the point and the...
Yeah, that's where we live, literally on... What's our street called? Westview Boulevard.
I was going to come up and say good day, and I was like,
is that... Well, next time, come and say hi.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad.
Well, so it's the best beach in the world. Yeah. But in winter, I get scared of the waves, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I was sitting there one day and we were having a really hard time in our family. There's been some really hectic shit going on the last couple of years where I've had to dig deep. Yep. And I'm like, I just need to know my nan who's passed away, like that you're here. Can you just give me a sign? Please just give me a sign of a white feather. Just kind of put that to the side. The next morning, Memphis and I, my little boy, I said, let's go to Hillary's today. Don't want to go to, Mullaloo Beach. Too many waves. Let's go for a dip. Get down there, and we look around Hillary's, and there is hundreds of white feathers just there on the ground. Yeah. And I was like, is that sign for me?
Or did some cat just eat it?
Yeah. And then 2 months later, I was sitting on a plane next to hubby and my little boy Memphis, and I was watching Elvis, which is my nan's favourite movie. We played his songs all when she was dying, and I was crying. Yeah. And Memphis looked at me, my little boy, and he's almost 5, and he said, Mummy, that was Nanny Brenda that day with the white feathers. She just wanted me to tell you. And I go, what the fuck? Like, and I took my headphones off, and hubby was just like, what is he talking about? And I'm like, I'm listening to Nan's song right now, watching Elvis, and then he's just randomly said, like, months later.
Oh my God.
And I just go, shit. And then
that's incredible.
So, and he talks to me about, how we spoke about feeling and visuals. I asked him one day, so are you talking to her? Yes, Mum, I am. And I said, well, do you feel her? Like, and he goes, yeah, I feel her. And like he's not even 5, and he's like, yeah, I feel it. Like, it's like he's speaking to a person who's been here for years and years and years. He doesn't question what he's saying; he just says it. And that day, I was just like, fuck, okay, maybe there is really.
There's definitely something about the innocence of children that they have nothing to hide.
Nothing.
And I don't know what the connection is. Maybe it's they're closer to the innocence that they were born with, potentially. They haven't been corrupted by
the beliefs, by our beliefs,
and the belief systems,
and the school system, and all the things. Even
our
own beliefs.
What, do you have a problem with the school system, do you?
Don't get me started.
Oh yeah, well.
No, I feel sorry for the teachers. That's a whole other topic. And I know one of my mates, Brianna, she was going to come in and talk to you guys about it. It's just, there's so many amazing things that happen in this. You know, I've got friends that work so hard as teachers and do amazing things. But yeah, there's a lot of shit that I feel like there's a lot of red tape and they can't, and IQ over EQ, you know, there's so many things.
It's pretty hectic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just even little Memph, his kindy teacher the other day, she came over and she was creating these signs for them, and she goes, I put a pink flower on it for Memphis. She goes, I would never have done that before. She goes, because just automatically I would have gone and given him the blue, but they know he wears pink shoes to school.
Yeah,
He's,
right.
you know, and he doesn't care. He's literally like, I don't care. He goes, someone gave me, you know, he's like, someone said, oh, they're girls' shoes. But I said, I'm happy and confident in these shoes. That's what he says.
Yeah, right.
And so
Fuck.
because that's the belief system that I'm getting him to believe. Like every morning I say, how do you feel? Confident, happy.
Mate, that's actually, that's in.
So I'm training him to believe that.
It's been a big game changer for, I don't like to talk about my daughter too much and stuff on the podcast anymore, but it's been a big game changer with her like behaviour by
Just how she.
Yeah, just saying, you know, we're happy, we're smiley, we're confident, we're happy, we're smiley, we're confident.
Yeah.
And fuck, man, the difference. Not saying, don't do this, don't do that, make sure you're a good girl, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no.
Just saying, yeah, we're a happy, smiley, confident girl, you know, like.
It's affirmation, like, you know, because, and also that every morning that he gets stressed, that's an anchor.
Yeah.
You know, like if you want to train your brain, the programming, all that kind of stuff, like that anchors him in. Every time he puts his pants on or his shoes, I am happy, I am confident in this outfit. It's a feeling that we're creating in him every day.
Yeah.
Because I never got that. You know, my mum and dad did their best, you know. Still could do better, but you know, I love them.
I think all of our parents did their best.
Oh, and Memphis will say how I fucked him up in certain ways too in the future, you know, for sure.
Oh, and it's going to be the same thing where like our parents did to us, and then we're going to do our like event like I'd like to believe that we slowly improve and we learn from, you know, our parents' flaws, and then my daughter will learn from my flaws, and we will progress as a society.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to find a fine line between, when it comes to parenting, being disciplined and understanding.
Oh my God, it's such a journey, isn't it? It's it's a tough gig.
Yeah. Especially with a kid with autism, it's been very challenging of like, so I know when she's taking the piss.
Yeah.
I know when you're fucking...
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I also know there's sometimes where you get overwhelmed and too much.
Oh, and do you know what? One of my biggest things with ADHD, I'm on the spectrum. That's autistic. You know, there's a certain part of it.
Yep.
And I feel we all are, like we said.
Yeah.
But one thing, it's like, I go to shopping centres and I am so overstimulated and I get real anxious. And I was just yesterday at the kids' koalas, you know, at the play centre for a birthday, and I'm fucking babbling all this shit because I'm so overstimulated and so socially anxious in this moment. So I just owned it, you know. And I think with these kids, it's like getting them to understand themselves, and like with mums too, like we get a lot of rage because we're overstimulated.
Do you think, I'm interested in your opinions on like gender roles and stuff, because I think there is a place for roles, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there's certain qualities of women that they're better at certain things, and I think men are better at certain things, and I think they should be celebrated, those differences.
What do you reckon?
I don't,
like what roles? Should I write mine down to hubby would probably be similar, I reckon.
Yeah. And this isn't, these aren't concrete because I think they bleed. I think there's room for a dad to be empathetic and loving and caring, but also be stern and be the discipline and be the strict and be the provider. Like, and I don't mean that women can't provide, but I mean be the provider, be the strong character in the household, and then the mother to be more nurturing and loving and caring. And not that I can't be loving and nurturing and caring, but I think they're just better adapted to doing those sorts of things. Generally speaking, not everyone, but generally in regards to that. So I think sometimes by removing these and blending these roles, we start to lose them, and then we see, we see it in the behaviour of children, in their confidence levels, and the family structure. I'm sure it has a lot more of an impact. I don't want to make too much comment on what impact it has on things because I don't know enough. But I am firm in my belief that men and women are better at different things.
Oh yeah,
and,
there's certain
and we
things.
should lean into them and celebrate them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I only had this conversation with my coach last week. So I'm working with Erica Kramer. She's the queen of confidence. She's fucking awesome. If she comes to Perth, you would 1,000% want her in here. She's so opinionated.
Yeah, cool.
But just as such a force and a leader. And we only spoke about this last week because her husband is the one, if in the household, that he's like the nurturer for the kids and he's the softly spoken one and she's the visionary, the big one out there like boom, 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 overtaking the world, doing her keynotes and everything. And she was like, but what you need is it's okay to have these different roles, but you need to communicate. Like she's got a psychotherapy degree and she's like, what the biggest struggle is when we're not seeing the in syncness and why people divorce or they can't support each other's businesses or goals or, you know, what is because they're not communicating and saying like, this is actually my role and this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm really good at actually. And, you know, and so it's actually owning that, you know, her husband is a bit more in that femme side of the nurturer. And if you read Erica's story, she grew up in foster care, you know, hugely, incredibly powerful story from sexual abuse to her husband dying and then coming out to Australia and meeting her husband now. And so, you know, she is hard. And so she isn't the one in the house that's like the nurturer, you know, but she's out there creating the huge vision. And then her husband's like, cool, he's the one that's like grounding and bringing them in. And it is, you know, when we were speaking about it, it's like this communication. And that's one thing that we spoke about. And I was like, yeah, I probably need to see what Griffo's needs are and like meet him instead of just assuming sometimes that he has to do this and I have to do that. And yeah, we only spoke about this last week, just the communication side of it. And then owning that role. Like I cook now. My hubby used to cook. But I actually love being in that flow state and that nurturing state, knowing that that's what he really likes, to come home to a cook. And I know that's so like old school 1950s, get me back in the fucking kitchen. However, that's a need that he actually really likes and makes him feel really happy. And so I learned to cook with the help of meds. Like being medicated has helped me be able to read recipes and not feel overstimulated and understand how to cook in the kitchen.
And clearly this is you and him, not this isn't for everyone. But it's just,
God, no. And this is what I guess what I'm saying is like every one of us is so different. So it's like working out, well, maybe this is your strength here and then maybe this is your strength there.
Well, we can have generalizations and broadly speaking, there are outliers, of course. But, you know, generally speaking, most men just want to feel appreciated. They just want to be, they just want to feel appreciated. They don't even need to be, they don't need to have a gift in return. They just want to feel appreciated.
See, Griffo's is just acts of service. Hubby, and I'm not talking sexual service. I'm talking like, I mean, doesn't mind a good old BJ every now and then. But, you know, he really loves that, you know, cooking of the dinner. Whereas for me, I'm like, you fucking tell me how amazing I am. Like, you know, I'm desperate for that validation that, you know.
Is that a woman thing, do you think, or is that a Heidi thing?
I think that's women do. There's a lot of the women that I surround myself with are words of appreciation. You know, and that words of affirmation, words of appreciation, words of affirmation. That's kind of their love language. So I don't know if it's a girl thing, but I like you don't like to generalize too much because then I would start to, and then someone will be like, "Hey, Heids, I've got a whole other perspective over here," and I'm like, "Oh shit!" I do agree. Like, there's times in the house that I am the nurturer, and I am the one that's really empathetic, and I've got to train hubby to be more empathetic, you know?
See, and like for me, for example, getting presents on my birthday this year, first time I got presents in the last 3 or 4 years. And I didn't care what she got me. I was just overwhelmed the fact that I got presents.
Oh, that's
and it was the fact that she put a little bit of thought into them. And I know that it might be different for her or for other people, but for me, it was just like the thought. That's what it was. It was the appreciation for just at least an effort in any way.
And I think that's the whole thing, because guys have generally, you know, back in the day, they were the ones that were the provider, the breadwinner, especially growing up in my parents' era. Although my mum was, and my mum and dad had a business, and my mum had, you know, so they probably threw that out the window a little bit. But it is true, like Dad just wanted to be appreciated, that he was going to work every day and he was working his ass off and putting everything away for my brother and I. And hubby is like that as well, and I see that with his parenting of our son.
Yeah.
He wants that appreciation from our son, and I'm like, he's 4.
Yeah.
This is learnings for him. He doesn't, there's like, oh, but he needs to appreciate. Well, he's 4. He's just learning how to get his words together, So I think it comes down to, again, I guess, the communication on how you want to teach your children, and then the conversations that you have between partners as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, I think for whatever reason, there's been this this movement, and it's always I feel like it always goes too far. Like feminism, the rise of feminism, perfect. Let's have equality, equal rights, which I can't believe that was ever a discussion.
I know, but still a discussion.
And then it moves to the point of the opposite. And now we're seeing, for example, in universities, 69% of graduates are female, over 31% men. So it's actually gone the other way. We've gone, instead of corrected to make it even 50-50, it went from it was 69% men, 31% women, and it's now 69%. Yeah. We've had an overcorrection. And I think sometimes pushing for, the rise of feminism and feminist rights, it like lots of incredible movements can get hijacked and they lose their core initial, what's the word?
Why they started?
Yeah, the core initial drive, which was to make sure that we're all the same and we're all treated equally.
Yeah.
It does show that at least now women are being promoted.
Will they get hired for the jobs though?
Yeah. It's interesting as well because the way men approach situations is different to the way women approach situations, and we're stupid to think that it doesn't happen like that. So potentially stressful situations in the workplace might be handled better by a certain gender in certain situations or certain roles, certain careers. So I don't want to comment on it too much because I don't know enough about it, but I would assume that a man and a woman would handle situations differently mentally.
But even like coming from the coaching space where I spend a lot of time, doing coaching and that now, and a lot of my friends who are working in business with their partners, it is their partners who is grounding the woman who is very big vision, got all these, wants to do 50,000 things, doesn't think of the next steps, already over there doing the next big thing. And it's their husbands that are coming in and actually bringing that kind of simplicity, structure, into these businesses. And I'm seeing so many of my friends skyrocket because they're working together in, I don't want to say their roles, but, the guys bringing that, whereas women, I think we tend to sometimes be quite, I know for me and the women that I know, quite emotionally driven, whereas men are more logically driven. Yeah. And so in the coaching space, like that, I see that all the time and I'm like, damn, maybe I need to bring my hubby in.
Well, that would make sense, I guess, at the top levels of business. If you're making a decision based on emotion versus logic, they're going to have marked differences and different results. That's not to say that a woman can't have
God, no. I've met some incredible and, I know some incredible. And I think for me, what's helped me in coming back to our whole theme today of like being medicated is that I'm not that, out of control with my emotions, and I can be a bit more, take the emotion out, a bit more stable. Like there's not that charge behind it anymore. Yeah.
And you can end up having a situation where like equity, instead of, and having 50% of each gender, for example, that means you're not having the top percentage of people in the roles that they should be deserving of. Now, I understand that they may not have had the opportunities growing up, but not in the last 30 years. Like that's, if you're a 30 or 40-year-old woman and saying you've been oppressed, like, nah. Yeah. Like, or a 20-year-old woman, definitely not. Like, you have not been oppressed. Maybe 50, 60, they would have, and maybe to a point, maybe like in the late 40s, you might have experienced some sort of I won't say oppression because that's not the right word, but my brain's not working.
I think, like I remember we spoke about this on the radio a few years ago, and like I remember my boss pulled me in and said, how are you not sticking up for women when they're talking about something that Julie Bishop had said and like speaking into this conversation? And I said, but I've never experienced. I've always got ahead in my job with men cheering me on, and I've never experienced that. Being told no, I guess, and that I can't do that because I'm not a woman. I have now, and I've lived that in the last couple of years for certain things. So it's like, it's a really, really tough conversation that I always am like, oh God, am I like, have I said the right thing for women? Like, because I am so passionate about women rising to the top. Yeah,
it's interesting. When it's that overcorrection that I think you're in reference to. Like sometimes people they preach and they push for like women this, women that, but at a point we've been putting into place equality and in the workplace and that doesn't just that does not mean it doesn't still exist in certain areas and misogyny and people looking down on people. But largely speaking. Like, I don't look at a woman in any other way. I just like, if they can do the job, they can do the job. Yeah.
It was interesting. I ran an MC gig for International Women's Day this year, and one of the ladies who was speaking said, it's a mindset thing. And she said, that's our biggest issue. And the way that she spoke about it, and she's a high performance coach, and she's an incredible woman. And she said, think about with COVID. Overnight, we had to change the way we thought, like people can't work from home, And she's like, and then the next day, everyone had to work from home. It was a mindset. She said, so what if we change, this is how it is in the workplace. And she said, it's a mindset for so many people of why, that woman can't do that job or this, that comes from people's belief systems. That was that when she said that, I was like, oh, that's actually really fascinating. She's like, the issue is we could change it and it could happen overnight. It's a mindset thing. And that for me, I was like, wow, I've never thought of it like that before.
Yeah. It's
he's like, quick, give me the fucking ghost stories.
I'll give you some ghost stories because I mean, I love this topic. This is a real interesting topic, but I hate commenting on it when I don't have the data, the stats, and the understanding of certain areas.
Yeah, and my thing is, it's like I'm a huge advocate for giving women a voice and creating a stage, and I've done all that.
I have a daughter, of course. I want women to rise up and succeed. But
same, and it's like one of those things that's like you need to just do a call out, like all these women that have experienced all this shit, get the studio, share your stories.
But the thing that annoys me at the moment is that it seems like it's getting louder and louder and louder. Women need this. Women need this. I feel like we've given it.
Yeah.
And there is equality and women aren't oppressed anymore and they're not held back because of their gender. Yeah. So why are we still talking about it?
I think because the people sometimes in families, like I see it, like I've, just hear it from my husband's friends sometimes, like they're joking, but I'm like, don't fucking joke like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That it's still this.
Yes. There is a generational sort of ideas that they carry on,
and I've even had to speak to my dad to about when his friend was inappropriate one day, and I was like, do you realize like what you're saying in front of me about a young girl over there? So there's that as well. But this is very layered.
Mate, I'm one of those guys who'll be like, back especially when I was younger, like you look at a girl, fuck, and you objectify a woman. And, look, mate, I'm not going to pretend I don't look at a girl walking down the
that was
coast.
Me at Mullaloo, wasn't it?
Hell yeah, that's why I came in there. I was looking at you from afar. I'm not going to pretend I don't like look at an attractive woman walk past and think they're fucking beautiful. Like, of course, like they're wearing tights that hug up their fucking butthole. Like they're wearing them for a reason most of the time. But I'm not going to yell out anything and I'm not going to stare or anything. I'm just going to be like, oh, that was a hot girl.
Well, I think we all have inner thoughts, right? Like everyone has inner thoughts. But I think there's some times that, that those are the things that need to be challenged. And I think we spoke about that last time with Delbs. It's like questioning those thoughts sometimes. And like, is that, can I change that? Do
Yeah.
I want to think that? Like,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Whereas I think some people believe, oh, well, I think I have that belief and I have that thought, so that's just who I am. And
Yeah.
and it's like, well, no, you can challenge it.
Yeah, I can recognise when someone's beautiful, just like I expect any woman I'm with to recognise when I have a good-looking friend.
I thought you were going to say when I'm beautiful.
I'm fucking hunky. When, like, if some of my friends or fucking like a movie star or just some random walking past, like my girlfriend now, if she was to say like, "Well, he's good looking," I'd be like, "Yeah, cool."
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't, for me, it doesn't mean anything. I'd just be like, "Yep, you're right."
Yeah, he
I
is
can
really hot.
recognise that guy's a
Delbs
good looking.
is very sexy.
I fucking hate that bloke. Every fucking girl thinks he's incredible.
It's the comedian.
Mate, I get it. He's a good-looking bloke. I understand it. I'm willing to acknowledge it. I'm fine with that. So, but yeah.
Are you saying that he's the better looking one?
Well, yeah,
is that what we're saying here?
I'll give him that one. But we'll
You've both got your strong suits.
we'll put him. We'll put that aside. What we were getting at before is saying inappropriate things about women, and I know what women say about men in the background. I've heard these conversations on the couch while, like, I'm sitting there going, "What the fuck is this? What women talk about?" Like, I get it in behind closed doors, but to a point, there is inappropriate behaviour that needs to be stepped out.
I think so. And like, just to wrap that conversation up, have you guys spoke about in Australia, because I haven't actually listened lately, but I would love to know, did you speak about like, you know, DV in Australia and the rise and, you know, because there is I know some people that.
We haven't done a proper in-depth dive into it. We spoke very briefly on it when it became such a big
because it is, and with all the marches in Australia, because the thing is, a lot of people forget that, you know, the marches have happened, but it's like these conversations need to continue. And I was like, just thinking of you guys then, and I'm like, it would be a very great conversation for you guys to navigate with some women that have been through DV.
We've got someone who's used it as a base to launch off and build a new person, and then they tell their story and use it as in motivation. So it might be getting her on. So.
Yeah, well, because only recently with all the Blake Lively stuff and the movie It Ends With Us with Colleen Hoover, it's all about DV, and Blake Lively's come out and not really talked much into that, and she's been slammed, basically cancelled online. One of my clients has spoken out and said she isn't the problem though, because and her perspective on it was because she's a DV survivor.
Yeah.
And we only did a live on this before I jumped in here, and her using her voice and courageously saying that when everyone is ripping Blake Lively to shreds, saying that they've missed the point of the movie, just getting people to basically go watch the movie, and it's like, oh, a bit like there's a huge message within it.
Yeah.
So it's a very topical conversation right now around.
So what are they slamming her for
not promoting it
enough?
So people are rocking up and being like, shit, this is a movie on DV.
Yeah.
And then she's come out, and then now they're basically cancelling her. And my client, because I don't have experience in DV, I've helped friends through it, and it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
Like one of the hardest things to watch when you're feeling so helpless watching someone else go through it. And she's come out and said, but we're still talking about Blake Lively. We should be talking about the DV. So if you're focusing on cancelling her, she's not the problem. Like, yes, she could have done it better, but you're still missing the point of like the whole movie is about DV.
Well, she didn't have to fucking be in the movie, and they could stop whinging about that.
So these conversations are really still, you know.
That always annoys me when someone does a movie that's about it, and they're like, "Oh, well, you didn't do enough to promote it," or if that's what I'm. Is that what I'm understanding?
They're kind of saying to the whole Blake Lively thing is that she could have spoke about how had big conversations around DV.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
And she missed the point. And I agree. And so does Kat, my client.
Yeah.
However, Kat wanted to bring to the table, you're still missing the point, even just focusing on the fact that she's missed the point.
Yeah.
You know, because we're still making it about her. And she's like, she hasn't lived it, so she doesn't know. And when Kat spoke about that, she's like, you know, you don't know. And coaching actually saved her and made her realize that she was in a DV relationship. And she's like, people will go to that movie and they will see themselves, could possibly see themselves in it.
Yeah.
That's the conversation we need to be having. Not that, so getting people to go see it. Don't focus on the fact that she's fucked up the whole thing and she could be having bigger conversations. Like, how can we change the narrative ourselves?
Yeah.
I thought that was a really beautiful perspective from her, and she stepped in to talk about that. You know, and I've not experienced it, so I don't know. But her to courageously say that in a really like heavy debate online, I was just really proud of her.
No, that's
it's a big topic. That's the only reason why I was like, I know you guys talk a lot into.
It ends up being like a lot of conversations. Like people can try and do things for good, and then people will hate them on it, hate on them for it still, and that is like,
I think, but just talking about it brings up that.
Yeah.
You know, that you're giving it a crack. It's like the same with there's so many things that I've said wrong in my life, you know, trying to have conversations around it, but I'm trying to do, you know, and even this might be like, well, I'm trying to bring light to this, you know, this conversation that happens and, you know, go see, you know, for Kat, she's like, get women to go see the movie because then they might be able to see for themselves that, you know, that they are in it and then they can get the help and support. So
100%. That was,
that was a big ADD sidetrack. I'm not sure.
No. But that's like if you look back on even this whole conversation with like fear of like what we've said and if we've said it 100% correctly, like we're not perfect. Humans aren't perfect. Like I'll put up a clip and I haven't worded something perfectly, but you get what I'm getting at. Yeah. And then people go, well, technically you said this. And you're like, fuck off. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
But this is why I think so many people are afraid to speak out and talk and add, you know, their opinions to the conversation. I know coaching women in PR and like especially Kat, you know, she came to me for her online business, but now we're speaking about DV, a very important topic. Yeah. But, you know, if we constantly, I guess, worry, then, I mean, happily slide into my DMs and I would love to hear your story, I guess. Like my thing would be to support other people and point you in the right direction.
Yeah. All right, let's
now
finish.
Now we're going to wrap it up with some
ghost stories. Because you did get a ghost story going before and I wanted to tell you some ghost stories because I love doing these.
I love them too.
It's been we went down a bit of a serious topic anyway just then, but it's been such a serious few weeks in the podcast and the guests we've had, so I want to...
Soz, guys, I was supposed to bring the fun today.
No, you brought plenty of energy. It was great. All right. So, I was struggling with addiction at the time, and I had a big night and I was planning on ending my life. Fuck. A psychic that I had spoken to for 8 months messaged me saying, honey, what is going on? I have your dad here and he's saying, help my baby. He won't leave me alone. Is everything okay? If I didn't get that message, I wouldn't be here today. He said to call my mum and to come get me.
Wow.
It goes on. To come get me and help me through this mindset I was in. I've had many more experiences and he's given me signs and really stressful events.
Oh my God, I'm covered in goosebumps.
That
wasn't one of those ones that's like, that's a big...
Yeah, that hits.
Yeah.
That one...
Is that happened to you?
Hey?
Has that happened to you?
No.
Oh.
No, these are stories from our listeners. Yeah. They message us, our listeners.
But like, isn't that... Because so many men, like, you know, that topic of conversation, that's like the number one killer for men is suicide. But the fact that he's like that.
Well, this was a lady, actually.
Oh, was it a lady?
Lisa, her name was.
Oh, why did I think it was a bloke?
It's interesting how people can like have.
Did I just do that?
Yeah.
I created
Did you just assume someone's gender?
I just assumed that. Wow, Lisa, I'm so glad that you're still here and I'm so glad that your dad alerted the psychic.
Yes. Okay. Another one. Grandma died and she had told me that I will give you a sign. I called home to check my answer machine and forgot to hang up. When I got home, I listened to the messages and through the static, I heard, Ricky, I love you.
Fuck off. Fuck off.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh my God. See, because I asked my nan for a sign.
The static, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's...
Ricky, I love you.
Oh, okay. Here's one from Timbo.
Oh, go Timbo.
8 years ago, my brother passed away suddenly from a a brain aneurysm. While saying goodbye to him, I said we'd meet again one day. That evening, I felt a poke in my ribs, which was our personal little thing we did.
Oh my God, shut up. I want to cry.
Oh.
These are so...
I mean, that's lovely. That's
I
like a
was
little
thinking we
sign
were
like,
gonna do
hey, I'm
like,
here.
dun-dun, like, you know, the spooky music. But here I am like, oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Mate, some of these are incredible.
Oh my God.
This is a long one, but
Is
potentially...
it juicy?
Let's stick with it. Okay, so this is a longer one.
Okay, focus, Heidi.
Focus, Heidi. This is a long one, but my mum died 10 months ago. Before she passed away, I told her our code word was peacock or the letter P. She loved peacocks. I took her fingerprints before she passed and after she passed. I had the urge to take another fingerprint. And when I got home, I looked at the prints and one of the single ones I took after she died had a letter P in it. I have got the tattoo since. The day before my mum's funeral, I was at the station picking up my best friend on the train as it was delayed. As it was delayed by hitting a bird. As I walked out of the station I need to go to the next page. My bad. As I walked out of the station, I found a lady and she was selling peacock feathers. When I saw them, I asked her what made her go and sell peacock feathers. She had no idea. Usually she sells... what is it? Oh. Usually she doesn't sell peacock feathers, and I knew it was a sign.
Oh my God.
Next to the stall was a sign that said, I'm here for the booze. My mum also used to call me Boo as a child. I got 2 feathers and I wear them every day.
Oh my gosh.
Well, there's a bit in that one.
Do you normally take people's fingerprints when they die?
That's a weird one for me.
I'm here for work or whatever, but what were you planning on doing with the fingerprints?
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, that's an interesting one. But the fingerprints thing, I don't know why you'd take them. But
Can you let us know? Can you?
I can. Yeah. Well, I'll clip it up and I'll tag her in, and then
tag us. Let us know because I'm fascinated, like before and after.
That was Becky.
Becky, thanks for sharing and sorry for the loss of your mum.
Yeah.
Peacocks is a bit of a random fucking feather to sell as well.
100%. And then
they randomly see them and
the P and the fingerprints.
Yeah.
Also, just a last minute thing. I don't know. Are you an Oasis fan?
Yeah. Oh, let's just say I am.
I'm a big Oasis fan.
Yeah.
They put up a post. So they've been broken up for 15 years.
Oh,
The two
they're
brothers
getting
hate
back
each
together.
other. They put up this. It's 27th of the 8th, 2024. And it had 8 a.m. So I have a feeling there's an announcement.
They're going to reconcile. They've probably done their inner
Please.
child work, therapy. They've done mushroom journeys. One could be medicated. Like they've healed.
100%. That's so good. Mate, that really gets me going. The world fucking needs that at the moment.
What is it? What's their song? You're my wonder world.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only one I know.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Can you sing a line?
Of any? Of
Yeah. Give us your best.
No.
Come on, you wouldn't do that.
I'm not a great singer.
Who cares?
You gotta roll with it. You gotta take it.
Karaoke.
I love, mate. They're up there, just performances and stuff. So
It's
and
pretty-
through a I guess I don't know I guess we're an influencer now. We got
Yeah,
tickets.
you guys
Me
are.
and Delby got tickets to Iron Maiden. Delby hates Iron Maiden, but we have our ticket suppliers letting us go to events. So
Well, if you ever get a box, you know who to invite.
yeah, well, looking
That's
at
me.
Coldplay next year.
Oh
as
my
well,
God,
mate.
okay, lock me in.
Yeah, I'm fucking looking at that
Fuck
one.
all those other regular
I'll
guests.
fly
Bring
over.
Heidi Anderson.
Perfect, but mate, thanks so much for coming on
Thank
today.
you.
You're
Big
incredible.
topics.
What's anything you want to plug before you go?
Just let me get out my scroll. No, just find me over on Instagram @ Heidi Anderson. I've just launched my shit show live stories over in Melbourne. So for any Melbourne listeners, if you want to send me a message, and then our next show is in Perth in November. So
Mate, and it's going. No.
what's happening?
There
there a fucking ghost behind me?
Yes,
Jesus.
Mario just fell off the wall.
Is it my nan?
It's your nan.
Nanny Brenda, you there?
Oh, mate, thank you so much. I love the energy,
Oh,
and
thank you.
yeah, definitely get you back on again soon.
Next time I'll pop my Ritalin at the start.
Perfect. All right, Everett.
Bye.